Bien, bonjour, merci à toutes et à tous de nous rejoindre comme chaque jour en direct sur EBS pour notre briefing en ligne quotidien. Nous sommes le mardi 31 mars. Comme chaque jour, j'ai des annonces à vous faire, ou nous avons des annonces à vous faire plus précisément. I will start with tomorrow's college agenda, which will once again focus on our response to the coronavirus crisis, in terms of the emergency response, the exit strategy, and the recovery plan. Furthermore, the College will discuss developments in member states as regards emergency measures. J'appelle maintenant Johannes pour une annonce sur la recherche.
Good afternoon. The Commission has decided to fund an additional project as part of its emergency call for urgently needed research and innovation into the coronavirus that was launched in January. The new project will be coordinated by an Irish company. It will develop and validate a rapid molecular diagnostic test for the virus. This brings the number of supported projects to 18, the total number of research teams involved in this exercise to 140, and the total budget from Horizon 2020 to 48.5 million euros. Speaking of Euro research funding, we also announced today the 185 winners of the annual European Research Council Advanced Grants competition. The selected researchers will work on various challenging areas, including viruses, immunity and cancer research, quantum computing, photonics and climate science, as well as historical epidemics. The funding is expected to lead to the creation of some 1,800 new jobs for postdoctoral fellows, PhD students, and other research staff. You'll find more information in the Daily News.
Thank you, Johannes. Now let me call Vivian, who has two announcements to make on the Green Deal, the European Green Deal, and on the management of waste.
Thank you, Eric. Good afternoon. So two announcements today that show that while, of course, all the Commission's immediate political focus is on the task of combating the coronavirus crisis, we are continuing our preparatory work on the long-term policy priorities such as the European Green Deal, which is, of course, as you know, our growth strategy that will be one of the central pillars in Europe's economic recovery. First, the Commission is launching today a 12-week public consultation on the European Union's 2030 emissions reduction targets. As you know, the Commission has committed to putting forward proposals to increase the European Union's 2030 climate target to at least by 50% and towards 55% compared to the 1990 target emission levels. The Commission would like to encourage all stakeholders to respond to the public consultation, which is opening today and runs until the 23rd of June, the midsummer, so that this would allow us to put forward a thoroughly impact-assessed and comprehensive plan to increase the European Union's climate ambitions. Secondly, we have published today a guidance document that the Commission has prepared to ensure that we have a common European approach to secure the continuation of waste shipments across the EU using the set up green lines. Maintaining a high level of protection of public health and the environment is, of course, essential in these exceptional circumstances where we are. We therefore need to also make sure that the disruptions of waste shipments are limited, as intra-EU waste shipments are a key link in the whole supply chain, from the collection to the final treatment of waste and its reuse as a resource. The Commission is committed to achieving a functional circular economy and continues working for it during also those difficult times we're going through. And you will have more information on both of these measures in our daily news. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Et comme vous le savez, dans ces périodes difficiles, la culture est un élément de réconfort important. Donc, je voudrais appeler Suzanne, qui est avec nous, je pense, en ligne, pour une annonce concernant le European Cultural Heritage Label. Suzanne.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much. The Commission has awarded today the European Heritage Label to 10 new sites. All of them have played a significant role in the history and culture of Europe and the building of the European Union. Following a pre-selection by participating member states, an independent expert panel from across Europe has selected the sites. The sites are the archaeological area of Ostia Antica, the underwater cultural heritage of the Azores, the living heritage of Szentendre in Hungary, the colonies of benevolence in Belgium and the Netherlands, the Shinwart Chateau in Czechia, the Straflitzer, the message of the European Spring of Nations in Ljubljana, the site of remembrance in Lambinovice in Poland, the Werkbund estates in Europe, in Germany, Poland, Czechia and Austria, the lieu de mémoire sur Au-Charbon-sur-Lignon in France, and the Three Brothers in Riga. Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture, Education and Youth, Maria Gabriel said, I warmly congratulate the 10 sites. They all provide great opportunities for European citizens to connect with their cultural heritage and to strengthen their sense of belonging to the European Union. In total, there are now 48 European Heritage Label sites in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. I think we all hope that the period of confinement will end soon and that we will all be able to go and visit one or more of these sites which are spread across Europe. Voilà, et avant de passer à vos questions, une dernière annonce très importante, c'est aujourd'hui l'anniversaire de notre porte-parole Daniel Ferry, qui est avec nous derrière. Bonjour Daniel, il passe un cap important aujourd'hui, 30 ans. Il est encore très très jeune et déjà il est porte-parole, c'est très bien. Bon anniversaire à toi Daniel, j'espère que nous fêterons cela comme il se doit plus tard, mais en attendant j'espère que toi tu pourras le fêter malgré les circonstances chez toi.
Merci David.
Voilà. Alors, ceci étant fait, nous passons maintenant aux questions. Nous avons reçu 37 séries de questions aujourd'hui de votre part, en plus de celles qui étaient adressées au représentant et vice-président M. Borrell. Certaines de ces séries de questions ont été en plus divisées en de très nombreuses sous-questions. Comme vous le savez, nous essayons de répondre à un maximum de questions, mais nous devons organiser les choses pour tenir un temps à peu près raisonnable, tant pour vous que pour nous. Mais nous allons commencer tout de suite avec une première question de László Arato. Je vais demander par contre à mes collègues de s'assurer que les microphones soient éteints pour que nous n'ayons pas les babillements de nos chers enfants en ligne. Merci. Alors, je reprends. In English, in fact. We have a question from László Arato from index.hungary. Have Hungarian citizens been repatriated in the framework of the European Civil Protection Mechanism, or is it expected in the next few days? Is there a summary of passengers by nationality? If so, can I get it? Balázs.
Hi, good afternoon. The answer is yes to both. So far, 101 Hungarian citizens have been repatriated in the context of the coronavirus from third countries via the Union Civil Protection Mechanism. Regarding your second question, my answer is yes again. There's a summary of repatriated passengers by nationality, and I will be very happy to share it with you in the course of the afternoon.
Thank you. Second question for you, Balázs, from Simon Klatt from German press service Agra Europe. The Commission proposed in the current MFF proposal that certain payments to its member states, for example, cohesion funds, should be attributed to the rule of law. I think what is meant is that there would be conditionality related to the rule of law. Are these suggestions still strong enough to cope with the current situation in Hungary?
Well, let me recall first that on the 2nd of May in 2018, the Commission indeed proposed a new mechanism to protect the EU budget from financial risks related to generalized deficiencies regarding the rule of law in the member states. This new mechanism will, of course, ensure sound financial management of the union's budget and protect taxpayers' money. Currently, there is no such mechanism in place, so the proposal will fill this gap. It is also independent from the Article 7 procedure. Now, this is not a political instrument. It seeks simply to strengthen the EU budget and to protect it from financial risks related to generalized deficiencies in the rule of law.
Okay, thank you. Now this opens a chapter of questions on the measures adopted yesterday by the Hungarian Parliament, the emergency measures. We actually have received 9 different sets of questions on this. Again, from Simon from Agro-Europe, from Martina Stevis-Gridnev from the New York Times, from Quentin Arias from the Washington Post, Michel Winde from DPA, Andreas Lieb from Kleine Zeitung, Isabelle Horry, Europe 1, Catherine Fiori, EU reporter, Maria Garcia Sornosa, Aki Europa, and Jenny Virtanen, Finnish Daily, Helsingin Sanomat. So many different questions, but roughly on the same issue. The different dimensions which are covered by these questions concern our political assessment, or assessment rather, of the political and of the legal situation in Hungary, of contacts with the Hungarian authorities, the important dimension of the freedom of the press. Will the college discuss these measures, and will we call for a general investigation in all member states? We have just issued a statement by President von der Leyen on emergency measures in member states in general, and I would like to read it out to you now here in the press room. The European Union is founded on the values of freedom, democracy, the rule of law, and respect for human rights. These values are common to all of us. We must uphold and defend them, even in these challenging times. Over the past few weeks, several EU governments took emergency measures to address the health crisis caused by the outbreak of the coronavirus. We are living in extraordinary times, and governments, in principle, need to have the necessary tools to act rapidly and effectively to protect the public health of our citizens. It is of utmost importance that emergency measures are not at the expense of our fundamental principles and values as set out in the treaties. Democracy cannot work without free and independent media. Respect of freedom of expression and legal certainty are essential in these uncertain times. Now, it is more important than ever that journalists are able to do their job freely and precisely, so as to counter disinformation and to ensure that our citizens have access to crucial information. Any emergency measures must be limited to what is necessary and strictly proportionate. They must not last indefinitely. Moreover, governments must make sure that such measures are subject to regular scrutiny. The European Commission will closely monitor, in a spirit of cooperation, the application of emergency measures in all member states. We all need to work together to master this crisis. On this path, we will uphold our European values and human rights. This is who we are, and this is what we stand for. And as I said in my announcements, the college will tomorrow have a discussion on emergency measures which have been taken in the member states and the related developments. Specifically on Hungary and on the general mechanism, I would like to add Christian to add a few words. Christian?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Christian.
The statement.
Yes.
Just by the words of the President.
Okay, I think we have a problem for the first time actually with the connection with Christian. So I will speak in his place to say that as regards the state of emergency in Hungary, the Commission will, based on the principles which I have just mentioned in the statement from the President, now analyze the final law and closely monitor its application by the government. This includes the application of provisions criminalizing fake news. Also, in these challenging times, legal certainty and freedom of expression must be guaranteed. And more generally, I would remind you that in the political guidelines of the President, we have sketched out the proposal which will be forthcoming of a general rule of law monitoring mechanism, and the Commission will be coming back in due time with a proposal on this subject.
Can you hear me? But
Yes, Christian, but now I've actually read out your line, so it's okay. Thank you. Thank you.
There were a couple of other questions, I think. But
okay, if you want to add something, please feel free.
Yeah. So there was a question about media freedom, actually, which I would like to, for a moment. Our position on media freedom is well known. Democracy without free and independent media. It is more important.
No. Okay, Christian, we have a problem with the connection today, so we will cut it off now. You can go back to the journalists bilaterally on this. So let's now move on to the subject of the implementation of the withdrawal agreement with the UK. I hope that, Daniel, that you can hear us. Question from Catherine Fiore from EU Reporter. Question on the readout of yesterday's first EU-UK joint committee meeting. Did the European Commission receive any information on the UK's efforts to implement the Northern Ireland Protocol? The EU had requested a detailed timetable with the necessary measures. Is there a deadline for this timetable, and is it in June or beforehand? And Catherine appreciates, we're grateful for that both the EU and the UK are very busy dealing with the pandemic. But since the UK has not requested an extension to the transition period, will the UK suggest an extension, given the absence of progress? There is a related question from Maria García Zornosa from Aquí Europa on whether yesterday's meeting discussed the extension of the transition period.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Eric, and thanks, Catherine and Maria, for your questions. As we said in our statement that we published last night, we recalled once again the importance of a timely and proper implementation of the withdrawal agreement in general, but of course the protocol on Ireland and Northern Ireland in particular. As well, we launched the work of these 6 specialised committees yesterday, which is an important step. They have an important role to play because that's where a lot of the technical work will be done on implementing the withdrawal agreement in full. That's also why Vice President Šefčovič insisted yesterday that the work on the Specialised Committee on the Protocol on Ireland and Northern Ireland kicks off as a matter of urgency. So that's just one point that I would underline there. Catherine, in terms of timeline, this work starts now and will be ongoing over the coming months. We'll take stock at the next meeting of the Joint Committee, which for the moment is scheduled for the month of June. But of course, we can get back to you on an official date once that has been set in stone. Finally, Maria, to answer your question, no, we did not discuss any extension of the transition period in yesterday's meeting. As I recalled yesterday at midday, any extension needs to be taken by a decision by mutual agreement between the EU and the UK in the Joint Committee. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much, Daniel. We now move on to the subject of the macroeconomic response of the Commission with a set of questions for Marta. The first from Tommaso Galavotti, the first two from Tommaso Galavotti, and the third one from Massimo Maugheri from the Italian press agency AGI. Tommaso works for ADN Kronos. And the questions all relate to basically the issue of Corona bonds and Euro bonds and the European debt instrument. So Marta, perhaps you can give our explanations on this issue.
Thank you, Eric. I will indeed explain both the substance and the process on this issue. So on the substance, the Commission continues to support the institutions and the Member States using all the tools at our disposal to mitigate the substantial negative economic and social consequences of the coronavirus epidemic. As President von der Leyen made it very clear, all options remain on the table. It is also important that those options are quick, effective, and based on a consensus among all the key actors and, of course, in particular, Member States. Now, when it comes to the process, the division of work after the European Council last week was very clear. So the leaders tasked the Eurogroup with continuing their work on the crisis response, and they have a deadline of 2 weeks to present their proposals. The Commission stands ready to assist the work of the Eurogroup within its mandate and if supported by the Eurogroup. In parallel, the Commission and the President of the European Council have been invited in consultation with other institutions and in particular the ECB to prepare a comprehensive recovery plan on which reflections have started. But it's of course too early to give you any details at this stage.
Thank you, Marta. We have another question, this time from Tommaso Lecca from Public Policy News Agency. This afternoon at 3 p.m., the Council President Charles Michel will hold a video conference with Christine Lagarde, Mario Centeno, and the Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Why is Commissioner Gentiloni not taking part in this video meeting? Now, obviously, meetings take place at different levels all the time. The particular meeting that is being referred to is one between presidents of the institutions. A question from Nikolai Nielsen from EU Observer. Would you say that lobbying of the European commissioners and their subordinates has intensified or diminished in the past few weeks, and are they being lobbied primarily through WhatsApp or some other form of digital communication, and if so, which one? Now, that's a very different question from the ones we usually get. All I can say is that obviously we are continuing with transparency measures as before, which is to say that meetings, including video meetings of commissioners, are published in their calendar, and there is a register of these meetings. As to the exact modes through which contact is being made, that is really something for you to ask lobbyists themselves based on the information that you can find. But clearly, as we have said, physical meetings for the moment are extremely rare, if at all existent. I then have je passe en français. J'ai maintenant une question de Philippe Régnier. Bonjour Philippe, du soir. Est-ce que la nouvelle proposition de MFF évoquée ce week-end par la présidente von der Leyen sera sur la table des ministres de l'Eurogroupe lors de leur réunion du 7 avril? Alors pour rappel, à la suite du Conseil européen par vidéoconférence de la semaine dernière, l'Eurogroupe a été chargé d'un axe de travail qui est de faire des propositions sur la réponse économique dans les 2 semaines. Et il y a un autre axe de travail qui a été confié à la présidente de la Commission et au président du Conseil européen sur un plan de rétablissement, un recovery plan. Et c'est dans ce cadre-là, dans cet axe de travail-là, que se situent nos réflexions sur l'avenir du cadre multiannuel, cadre pluriannuel financier. Donc ce ne sont pas les mêmes axes de travail, ils n'ont pas le même calendrier. I now have questions for Sonia. The first one from Valentina Brini from ANSA. 95% of plants in Italy are closed, while in countries such as Germany, France, and Spain, the production still goes on. Italian unions have warned that the Italian market could be left out once the production restarts and asked for a European response. Is Commissioner Breton, as well as the Commission itself, working on that industrial topic?
Many thanks, Valentina, for the question. Since the beginning of the coronavirus outbreak, the Commission is closely monitoring the economic impact of this crisis on the European industry, on all relevant sectors. Also, we have already started to see the first negative impacts, and the Commission has, over the last weeks, addressed those negative impacts through various measures. Last week, the European Council has tasked the Commission with the preparation of an exit strategy, and the College, as Eric has mentioned, is looking into this question. And this will also address the relevant question on the economic impact on the sectors. As regards the actions taken by Commissioner Breton and the Commission services, the Commissioner has been extremely active and in contact on a regular basis with representatives of various industrial companies. Also, the Commission services are looking into the question and have sometimes daily conference calls with companies and also with associations of those companies to tackle these issues and observe closely the situation.
Okay, there's a second question which I will answer myself from Jakob Hanke from Politico. More and more countries are starting to talk about exit strategies. Does the Commission plan to act to coordinate those exit strategies to preserve the single market? For example, lifting travel restrictions within the EU, keep borders to the rest of the world closed for a longer time. So indeed, this is part of the elements on which the Commission is currently reflecting. We need a coherent exit strategy. Member states have realized that the fact that they acted very independently on putting in place restrictive measures had collateral impacts on the single market, on the effectiveness of the measures that they had put in place, and therefore they have tasked the European Commission and the European Council to come up indeed with this recovery plan and with an exit plan that needs to precede it in order to progressively lift these strategies. Now, clearly we need to do this in a coordinated fashion, but this requires defining, obviously, the appropriate criteria and taking into account the fact that countries are and will be going through the pandemic at different rhythms with different peak times. So this needs to be taken into account in order to calibrate our response in a way that makes sense both from the point of view of protecting health of citizens, which is obviously paramount, and progressively restarting the economic engine in the most rational and effective way. I now come, as every day, to a long series of questions for my colleague Stéphane on a whole variety of issues. The first one is from David Price, eurdemocracy.com. Coronavirus broke out in Wuhan, China in November 2019. What does the EU research conclude about its origin? Is it natural or artificial? And Chinese reports have proved unreliable. And China blames the US. So these are more comments than a statement, but what's our assessment of the origin of the virus?
Good morning, David. Thank you very much. The first thing I obviously would like to stress here is that the Commission continues to follow the advice and the recommendations of the World Health Organization and of the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control. Both the World Health Organization and the ECDC indicate that on the 31st of December 2019, a cluster of pneumonia cases of unknown cause was reported in Wuhan in China. On the 9th of January 2020, the Chinese authorities reported a new coronavirus as a cause of this outbreak. This being said, the coronavirus pandemic is a global pandemic. We're talking about the virus here. Viruses do not have nationalities. Viruses do not respect borders. What is important here is global cooperation and international solidarity to combat the threat and mitigate its short and long-term impact of the virus. Apportioning blame will not heal any single infected person. As the European Union, we're focused on helping our citizens and the people and the countries in need. Regarding transmission, at this stage, it's not possible to determine precisely how humans in China got infected. More research, which is ongoing, will help us determine this. And as just announced, the Commission is funding 40.5 million euros for now 18 projects to advance our understanding of the coronavirus and to contribute to more efficient clinical management of patients infected with the virus, and to contribute to the public health preparedness and response to the outbreak. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. We have a second question from David. To combat COVID-19, President Trump and other leaders have recommended the use of the anti-malaria drugs such as hydroxychloroquines, azithromycin, and zinc sulfate. These are known and used for decades and are well-tested products. The US Department of Health is now recommending their use. Is the EU doing the same?
Thanks. We are aware that chloroquine is traditionally used for malaria, rheumatoid arthritis, and lupus. We're also aware that chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine are used off-label. And we also know that in the EU, trials are ongoing regarding the use of chloroquine. The European Medicines Agency, EMA, has stated that efficacy with chloroquine in the treatment of COVID-19 patients has not to date been proven. While the pandemic spreads with great speed, robust clinical trials should remain the gold standard here. They're most likely to generate the conclusive evidence needed to enable rapid deployment and approval of potential treatments for the coronavirus disease. Clinical trials are a national competence, however, we continue to explore with the EMA, the European Medicines Agency, possible joint clinical trials at EU level to scale up evidence on any promising therapeutics.
Okay, we then have two questions related to the joint procurement. The first from Ana Nunez and the second from Sarah Wheaton. Do you have any news regarding the delivery of personal protective equipment through the joint procurement or the stockpile initiative? I'm specifically interested in Spain. When would the material arrive there? And basically the same questions from Sarah. How many of these items were requested by member states? How many ventilators are requested in that joint procurement, etc.?
Thank you. As Commissioner Kyriakides has said this week, this is a critical time for cooperation and solidarity. The Commission is doing everything it can to support member states, including Spain. This really is a top priority. And one of our tools to support the member states is the joint procurement process for medical supplies. We fully understand the urgency of the situation and the need to get the equipment as quickly as possible to those people who need it, patients and health workers. The Commission services have literally been working 24/7 to speed up the process and to reduce the administrative process as much as possible. Once the evaluation procedures for the procurement of protective personal equipment have been finalized and the framework contracts signed, member states have to sign contracts with the individual companies for the delivery of goods. The next steps depend now on how fast contracts are signed, how fast member states place their orders after signature of the contracts, and how fast the industry can indeed deliver the material at national level. Some of the equipment, depending on the specifications of the contracts, could be available within a few weeks after member states sign the contracts with the suppliers.
Okay, another question from Jakob Hanke from Politico. Does the Commission believe that the extremely low infection numbers out of China, just as Beijing is ending the lockdown does the Commission believe the extremely low infection numbers out of China, just as Beijing is ending the lockdown to save the economy? Lots of epidemiologists are saying that numbers should be rising again. There are reports on this in various newspapers.
We don't go into speculative scenarios. What is important is that the Commission continues, as I said before, we continue to follow the advice and the recommendations of the World Health Organization and of the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control.
Thank you. We have two questions for you on transport-related issues. The first from Kasia Siwanska from Radio RFM and Krzysztof Czepka from Polish Press Agency. The first is in French. Hier, les ministres des Transports de 8 pays ont envoyé une lettre au chef de la Commission européenne, Madame von der Leyen, pour demander la suspension du paquet mobilité. Ils disent que le secteur exceptionnel du transport routier souffrira d'une pandémie et que le secteur aura alors besoin de nouvelles mesures dans une nouvelle situation. Quelle est la réponse de la Commission à cette lettre? The question from Krzysztof is also about this letter and about our reaction.
Thank you. We have received the letter and we're looking into it.
Sorry for the very short answer, but this is obviously a very fresh news, and you know that we don't answer letters the day after here on the podium. Last question for you on transport from Saim Said from Politico. The Netherlands said it will go against EU passenger rights legislation by not requiring airlines to pay out refunds to the liquidity issues. Does the Commission have a response?
The Commission has taken note of this comment from the Member State. We're looking into it. We can assure you that the Commission, in the meantime, is committed to work closely with the Member States to find a balanced and a coordinated solution with all the stakeholders. And this obviously has to be in conformity with EU law that protects consumers and supports the companies in these sectors, regardless of their place of establishment in Europe.
All right. Last question, which is both for you and Sonia, from Griselda Pastor. I'll take the element of the question which concerns you first. Elle est en français. J'ai lu dans la presse belge qu'une partie des 100 000 masques reçus est non utilisable, faute d'homologation correcte. Est-ce que la Commission pourrait apporter des garanties sur les importations de matériel sanitaire? That will be for Sonia. Ça sera pour Sonia, pardon. Les différents paramètres dans chaque État membre pour les chiffres de malades et morts par le coronavirus est un autre grave problème qui empêche de connaître la situation exacte de l'épidémie dans l'Union européenne. Est-ce que la Commission pourrait donner un guide avec des paramètres pour que les États qui le désirent le suivent si elle ne peut pas l'imposer?
Merci Griselda. Bonjour pour cette question. Je pense que beaucoup a déjà été fait. Permets-moi peut-être d'expliquer ça un petit peu. Les définitions de cas fournissent les critères pour les cas du coronavirus suspectés, probables et confirmés. Le ECDC a mis à jour la définition de cas en l'alignant avec le rapport de l'OMS, et vous savez que les rapports de l'OMS peuvent être consultés en ligne. Toute personne remplissant les critères d'un cas suspect devrait être testée pour le coronavirus. L'ECDC fournit également des recommandations supplémentaires sur la gestion justement des cas. Ces recommandations ne sont pas imposées aux États membres, c'est leur compétence nationale, mais il s'agit ici de recommandations évidemment. En ce qui concerne les tests, la situation concrète peut être différente d'un État membre à l'autre et même au sein d'un même État membre. Nous avons publié des recommandations européennes pour les stratégies de tests qui sont basées sur les avis scientifiques de l'ECDC et complétées par le groupe consultatif d'experts établi par la présidente von der Leyen. Les États membres devraient se référer à ces recommandations européennes pour établir une prioritisation des tests en tenant compte évidemment de la situation concrète dans leur pays. Nous savons que chaque État membre est responsable de la mise en œuvre de ses propres procédures de test. Toutefois, les recommandations européennes peuvent contribuer à une approche ciblée basée sur une évaluation de risque et sur une approche scientifique. Merci.
Merci Sonia. Je te rappelle sur le podium pour répondre à la première partie de la question de Griselda concernant les mesures que la Commission peut prendre pour garantir la qualité du matériel sanitaire.
Oui, bonjour Griselda, merci beaucoup pour ta question. L'Union européenne a des normes strictes de santé et sécurité en ce qui concerne les fournitures médicales. La Commission européenne est très vigilante en ce qui concerne les produits qui sont circulés et qui sont mis en fait sur le marché européen. Aussi, cette vigilance est encore plus forte dans le contexte actuel parce que la santé et la sécurité de nos professionnels de santé est mise en cause. Nous avons publié au début de la crise des orientations pour des pouvoirs publics pour accroître l'offre d'équipements médicaux et de protection par la conversion des entreprises et des importations en provenance des pays tiers, sans mettre en danger la santé et la sécurité de nos citoyens. Ces orientations donnent des conseils pratiques sur l'application de la recommandation de la Commission relative aux évaluations de la conformité d'équipements de protection personnelle et de certains types de dispositifs médicaux. Cette recommandation prévoit deux scénarios dans lesquels les produits peuvent être mis sur le marché européen sans que la procédure soit finalisée. Aussi, la Commission travaille en étroite coopération et collaboration avec les autorités de surveillance du marché des États membres qui ont la responsabilité, mais aussi les pouvoirs respectifs de veiller à ce que seuls les produits sûrs soient mis sur le marché. Aussi, ce que je peux mentionner est que le 19 mars, c'est l'Office européen de lutte antifraude a lancé une enquête qui concerne l'importation des produits faux dans le contexte du Covid qui sont inefficaces et même préjudiciables à la santé. Et cette enquête est conduite en coopération avec les administrations douanières des États membres qui ont aussi un rôle clé à apporter dans cette situation. Merci.
Voilà, merci beaucoup. Nous sommes arrivés à la fin de la liste des questions que nous avons reçues aujourd'hui. Certaines, comme je l'ai dit au début, étaient identiques en termes de matière à celles qui nous avaient été posées les jours précédents. Vous pourrez trouver les réponses que nous avons apportées sur le site EBS dans les sections spécifiques sur chaque thème. Et nous restons bien entendu à votre disposition de manière bilatérale pour continuer la discussion sur les différents sujets aujourd'hui comme les jours qui viennent. Je vous retrouverai demain avec mes collègues pour le readout du collège, comme on dit, le compte-rendu du collège. Merci, bon appétit et à demain.